Weren't you planning to go overseas to study? Yes, that's right. But I just got a job here. I do want to go eventually at some point, if the pandemic ever comes to an end. I'm surprised you remember that. Didn't you say you were preparing to start your own business? Yes, that's right, but I had to put that on hold. I will get it started eventually at some point, if the pandemic ever comes to an end. I'm surprised you remember that. Didn't you say you were going to get a tattoo? Yeah, that's right, but I've been having second thoughts. I think I will get one eventually at some point, if I can stop being such a chicken about it. We often hear about what people are planning to do, what they're preparing to do, and sometimes a certain amount of time passes without it being mentioned again, and we naturally forget about them. But then sometimes we suddenly just remember them. And when that happens, we often want to follow up on that. We want to know how things went. And so that's basically the situation in each of the conversations today. The first part that I want you to focus on today is the question. Weren't you ing? We're using the past continuous tense in the negative form. Weren't you ing? It's just a very typical way we ask if it's true that the person was doing something at the time. Okay, so weren't you planning to go overseas to study? And in the second conversation, it's a little different. We're asking, didn't you say you were ing? So in this section, we're using the same tense, the past continuous, but the negative this time is in the front, in the part where we say, didn't you say? Didn't you say you were preparing to start a business? So these are the two most common ways people ask for a follow-up on something that was happening in the past. All right, and they know that something was happening in the past, but they don't know how it went, and they want to follow up on that. Okay, so these are the two most common ways. Weren't you doing this? Didn't you say you were doing this? The next part that I want you to focus on is the way person B responds to each of these questions. Person B initially gives a confirmation of what the person is asking, right? So yes, that's right. That's right. I was planning to go overseas to study. Yes, that's right. I was preparing to start a business. Yes, that's right. I did say I was going to get a tattoo. So the person is confirming it. And then the person explains how it didn't exactly go as originally planned. In the first conversation, person B says, yes, that's right, but I just got a job here. Yes, you're right. I was planning to go overseas to study, but I just got a job here. Now this is very simple. It's a very simple alternative result. I was planning to do this, but something else happened. However, in the second conversation, the person says, yes, that's right, but I had to put it on hold. I had to put that on hold. This is a really important expression. We use it a lot. I'm sure many of you know this expression, to put something on hold. It means to not carry out a plan any further. It's to not progress something any further, to put it on hold. It's like pressing the pause button, okay? So to put something on hold. So it means, yes, that's right. I was preparing to start a business, but I had to put it on hold. Okay, I had to pause it. Now, in the third conversation, person B says, yes, that's right. I did tell you I was going to get a tattoo, but I've been having second thoughts. I've been having second thoughts. This is another very commonly used expression. I'm sure many of you know what it means. Having second thoughts means, maybe I shouldn't. So the person is thinking about getting a tattoo, but on one side he thinks, maybe I shouldn't. This is having second thoughts. So yes, that's right. I did say I was going to get a tattoo, but I've been having second thoughts. I've been reconsidering. The next part that I want you to focus on is the expression eventually at some point. Eventually at some point. Eventually at some point. Actually, we don't have to use these expressions together, eventually and at some point, because in a way they overlap in meaning. Because the word eventually actually means at some point in the future. That's what eventually means. So we don't have to use these two together, but they are often used together just to emphasize that. Okay, just to emphasize that meaning that it will eventually happen. We don't know when, but eventually at some point. In the first conversation, person B says, I do want to go. I do want to go eventually at some point. I got a job here now, but I haven't abandoned on the idea of going overseas to study. And so I do want to go. I do want to go eventually at some point. It means I don't know when, I don't know how, but eventually at some point, I do want to go. Okay? In the second conversation, I'll get it started. So the person is talking about starting a business, but he had to put it on hold. He's holding it right now, but I'll get it started eventually at some point. I don't know when, but eventually at some point in the future, I will get it started. I was preparing to start a business. I had to put it on hold, but eventually at some point, I will get it started. I will get it started. Right now, it's on hold, but I will get it started eventually at some point. Eventually at some point, okay? A very commonly used expression. I really want you to try to use this expression, okay? Once again, it means I don't know when. I'm not certain exactly when, but eventually at some point, something will happen. In the third conversation, the person was planning to get a tattoo, but the person has been having second thoughts. But he says, I think I will get one eventually. I'm hesitating now. I'm having second thoughts now, but I think I will get one eventually at some point. Eventually, I don't know when. I don't know when I'll make that decision, but eventually at some point. Eventually at some point, I think I will get one. Okay? All right, so that was eventually at some point. The next part I want you to focus on is if this pandemic ever comes to an end. If this pandemic ever comes to an end. It means I don't know whether or not this pandemic will end, but if it ends. So we could say if the pandemic ever ends, we could say that. It's simpler and it's not awkward. But by saying comes to an end, we're expressing that a little more dramatically. It's like saying if that day ever comes. If the day that the pandemic ends ever comes. It's kind of like saying that. So we're expressing it a little more dramatically. All right, that pretty much covers all of the parts that I want you to focus on today. We'll have another listen. I'll let you have another listen of each of the conversations again, and we'll end the video there. Weren't you planning to go overseas to study? Yes, that's right. But I just got a job here. I do want to go eventually at some point. If the pandemic ever comes to an end. I'm surprised you remember that. Didn't you say you were preparing to start your own business? Yes, that's right, but I had to put that on hold. I will get it started eventually at some point, if the pandemic ever comes to an end. I'm surprised you remember that. Didn't you say you were going to get a tattoo? Yeah, that's right, but I've been having second thoughts. I think I will get one eventually at some point. If I can stop being such a chicken about it. All right, that's pretty much all I have for you today. I hope you found this video helpful or at least entertaining. Either case, I hope I can see you soon in the next video.